You're listening to Behind the Screens, presented by the ClearIT Partner Program from Mattson and Isom Technology Consulting. If you've ever wondered how confident, forward-thinking businesses make smart technology decisions while others fall behind, you're in the right place. Every episode, we pull back the curtain on the systems, tools, and leadership decisions that keep growing companies running strong, so you can apply them in your own business. Now, let's get into it with your hosts, Tyler Smith and Chris Harp.
Well, welcome everybody to our debut episode of Behind the Screens. We are here. We're hoping that we can put a new face on technology planning, and go a little bit behind the scenes, behind the screens, to really just open it up and have conversations about topics and subjects that are meaningful to small businesses and nonprofits and organizations all over really the West Coast, but in particular Northern California. So we're really shooting for episodes where we can drive some more clarity in technology and how technology can be used to help you be more successful as a business. What that real world insight looks like, and really try to stick to those leadership level conversations, because there's enough podcasts out there that dive deep into the nerdy technical detail. That's not what we're here for.
Not at all. We're not the right people for that, anyways.
We're definitely here to have those conversations about how can technology be used in a thoughtful way to help your business be more successful. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Chris Harp. Christopher, right? Man, Christopher?
We can go with Chris. I feel like
okay, yeah.
Getting yelled at by my parents if you use my full name.
We've worked together now for...
Since the end of 2008, beginning of 2009.
40 years, that's what I thought.
It's 54, but who's counting?
Feels
like it, in a good way.
And my name is Tyler Smith, and I am the CEO and a partner here with Mattson and Isom Technology. And again, we're just looking forward to having conversations that dive into some of the reasons why technology might be something that can help your business grow and succeed.
Definitely not stand in the way, because it tends to do that. I think a lot of people would agree,
especially when it's falling down, right?
Yeah, it's got a big old spotlight on it.
So, Chris, I'd really like to just start off. We've been hearing a ton from our clients, from family, from coworkers around AI and what is it, what's happening here, should we be afraid of it, should we be using it for everything? So I really just wanted to start from the perspective of small business owners around AI and kind of what it is. So what have you been seeing and hearing from people?
Okay. What a loaded question. It's so open-ended, though. Like, every time anyone from my family, my friends, I cannot have a conversation about AI without somebody bringing up, that's like iRobot, the movie, it's going to take everything over. And really, there's a huge misconception. It's very interesting, with the shift in where things are going. And they're using a lot of those cloud technologies to drive kind of the AI, and the AI's kind of driving a lot of the cloud technologies, and there's a vast amount of misconceptions out there, but you want to use it correctly. You want to make sure that it's channeled in a way, right? And it's extremely powerful, but if channeled correctly, it's extremely valuable.
It's exciting on the one hand.
Yeah.
It's
very
terrifying
true.
on the other.
Yeah.
I agree with you there, because I feel like, one, it's generating a ton of buzz. It is definitely something that everyone knows about. It's a word. It comes with its own punchy little acronym, right? You're seeing every major vendor talk about it. Microsoft's talking about it. Google's talking about it. Apple's talking about it. Facebook is talking about it. Amazon is talking about it. All of the big players have their own solutions, and so it's confusing. But it's definitely something that is coming like a freight train, right? And
faster than anything we've seen.
Yeah, you and I talk about this all the time. I feel like it's one of the most important advances in technology since the internet.
Absolutely.
Which is what, 1994, 95?
Date yourself there, but yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Just a few decades back.
Yeah. I think one of the, speaking of the confusion and the misconceptions, is I think when you're looking at, I think people are possibly confusing AI with automation. While they do play a part with each other. They're not a one-for-one
They're not the
replacement.
same.
Yeah, so people, there's that misconception out there, and that frankly, that confusion, like you're talking about, of like, it's going to replace us. It's going to replace us.
Right.
And I think later on we'll get into a lot of a little bit more details on that. And like I mentioned before, if you do it right and you use it right, it's not a replacement. It's an augmentation. It's an add-on. It's a value add.
Yeah.
If used correctly, and if it can save you time doing a task, then you can redirect to more valuable things, maybe, right? Or kind of next level things. So it's definitely something to add. I watch my 14-year-old, and he was a freshman in high school, and the way he uses it is way different than how I use it. We're still putting in the work, and we're still driving it. But it's definitely something that is, it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere, and it's lightning fast.
Yeah, and it's changing literally week by week.
Yep.
And I like what you said around like it's. I feel strongly too about the way a small business should think about AI is it's another tool in the technology toolbox. It is something that is incredibly powerful, and because it's moving so fast and it's so powerful, it does drive a little bit of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so the immediate knee-jerk reaction, I think, from small businesses is to either embrace it fully if you're a little bit on the more risk-tolerant side, or reject it entirely if you don't want to see it. And you have these kind of push-pull situations. And on either side of that, there's danger, right? Yep. If you just jump in whole hog and you don't do any planning and you just let everybody in your business use whatever tool they want, then there's some risk associated with data loss or somebody who leaves the job now having information that they shouldn't, or worst scenario, people using tools in ways they shouldn't to maybe try to shortcut things that are part of your core value as a business or as an organization. And then on the other side of it, of just clamping the doors shut and saying, don't use it, you can't use it. What we're seeing and hearing and finding from a lot of our small business clients is that people are finding ways to bring it in. It's the acronym I heard most recently, BYOAI. Right? Yeah. To bring your own AI to your job. And so people they're bringing it, and they see the utility. They know it's powerful. It's helping them save time and do things faster. And like you said, augmenting their ability to do their job. So for those businesses that are just like bringing down the gavel and saying, absolutely not, you cannot, you must not, that side of the equation means that you're forcing people to maybe go underground with their use case. Yep. So thinking ahead, and this is really a theme for us in general, right? When we're going to be talking in this podcast overall, is like technology as a tool should be used and planned to help the business succeed. So if people see this and they understand it as either a risk or a threat or an opportunity, either side of that equation, you need to sit down and think through, okay, what's appropriate use, what's not. Work with a business like us to help you plan it, or if you have an internal team to do it, like 100% have those conversations, because if you're not having those conversations, they're happening without you. Yep.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think there's like, to kind of bring it full circle, is we're talking about strategic alignment, right? Yeah. That's across the board, very broad term, but it's one of those things that, like I mentioned, it's here, right?
Not going anywhere.
And yeah, on the same token, we're business owners, right? Frankly, it's change, and that's scary. Some people view it as an opportunity, and some people view it as a threat. Yeah. But most likely, if you don't plan for it, you don't strategize around it, and I'm not saying build it around that, but at least plan for it. Like, what are the fail safes? What are the ideas we can use to embrace this? Again, not as a replacement, but an augmentation.
Yeah. Help them be more successful.
Yeah.
If there's low-hanging fruit in the organization for tasks that people do right now that are repeatable and very structured, and you can implement some of these tools to make that way faster to do without sacrificing any of the quality or the human touch in the process. And we're having those conversations with people right now. It is still super early, but like you said, it's not going anywhere. This is coming. Microsoft is investing a ton of money in it. Their whole platform with Copilot is just literally week by week, month by month, adding more and more and more functionality and features and value. And so I'm excited about it. I know we're bullish on the technology overall, but like any new technology, it needs to be thought through and planned.
Strategically planned.
If you just drop it in with no plan, it might work, it might not, and it might create chaos where it wasn't before. And
Well, with it not being planned out, like anything, you drop it in there. If it's not fully, embraced and built out, and there's a lot of strategy behind it, it may be implemented incorrectly, may be used incorrectly. To the broader, idea of this podcast is to basically strategic alignment and allowing it and embracing it and finding out how you can make, it does nothing out of the box, essentially. You are whatever you put into it, right? And then pumps into that engine, and then you get all this great feedback and everything. So I think
this podcast finds you well.
Yeah. The number one way to spot an AI-driven email is, I hope this finds you well.
Yeah.
Which has become a kind of a funny inside joke around our entire office.
Spot the AI.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one of the main dangers, and it connects, I think, really well to that point we're making of if you don't have a plan, then you probably aren't training. And if you're not training, then you're not telling people what the tool is good at and what it's not good at. And you're also not having those thoughtful conversations around how do we adopt this technology without giving up our soul, right?
Right.
If you have people and their job is to communicate with other people, that's part of the value you're delivering. So you're not going to replace that with a bot or with AI. And if you don't plan it out and people just start using it, then you get a bunch of emails written with, I hope that this email finds you well, or the dead giveaway, the other dead giveaway, the emojis that are dropped into the bullet points, right? That are just like, it's no regular human being would ever painstakingly find exactly the right emoji for the bullet point in a message, but by God, AI
every time
does it really well.
I still cannot find the quick key, and I'm big on quick keys, like to send emails or anything like that, or highlight everything, and I still can't find one for a rocket ship. But you know what?
It's there somewhere.
There every time.
Right at your computer, then go to your phone, then copy and paste it. Like nobody ever is going to do that. So.
Right, yeah.
But it just circles back around to the point, be intentional, be thoughtful. If you see the potential in the technology, whether it's AI or anything else, plan ahead, right? Like have a plan and think about how it might be able to help, and try to leverage it as a strategic asset to the business. Which, I mean, that's our drumbeat.
Yep.
We talk about that all the time. Technology as a strategic investment. It's something that will help the business be more successful, will help you grow, will help you address problems or solve challenges faster, more efficiently, with better data. And that's always the promise, but I feel like too often, especially in the small business scale, the investment thought is, I'm just going to put some money in it and then it'll run for a long time. And then when it stops running, maybe I'll put some more money in it again then. And the problem with that frame of thinking is then what happens in the meantime? Are you leveraging that?
Well, you talked about calculating ROI, right? Like any business owner is going to look at that and be like, okay, well, how am I getting my money back on that? That's a very challenging conversation to have when it comes to AI, because it's somewhat quantifiable, but it's more of a qualitative type, right? It help you format things and assist in rewording something,
right.
But definitely if used correctly, and frankly planned for.
Right.
This episode of Behind the Screens is brought to you by the ClearIT Partner Program from Mattson and Isom Technology Consulting. If you've ever had that sinking feeling that your tech just isn't doing what it's supposed to, you're not alone. Maybe it's the constant tickets, maybe it's the security risks, or maybe you just don't know what you're paying for half the time. That's where ClearIT comes in. We built it for leaders who want to stop firefighting and start planning. With the ClearIT Partner Program, you get a dedicated team, real strategy, and systems that just work. No more waiting, no more guessing. Imagine your IT actually helping your team get more done, and your business feeling more in control. That's the whole point. Want to see how it would work for your business? Schedule a free consultation today at mitcs.com/hello.
Now, back to the show.
So that kind of takes us into the next general conversation, and this will be a theme for us ongoing in this, is tech guesswork, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like for most businesses we talk to, they're very good at what they do, whether that's a nonprofit delivering on a mission or a construction business, building things or manufacturing. Yeah, look at us. We're
Hey,
insane.
oh my gosh. We didn't even rehearse that.
They are focused on what they do, and rightly so, because that's what they are in business to deliver. And a lot of small businesses have this challenge or problem around technology that it's kind of, you mentioned earlier, like it's in the way, right?
Yep.
They are trying to get whatever it is done that makes them valuable to their customers or their clients or whatever. And technology is often treated as kind of either a necessary evil or an afterthought.
Yep.
It's just something that has been set up and I just want it to work. I don't want to have to think about it. I don't want to worry about it. And what we find is very often talking with people, they know what the problems are. They're very aware.
Feeling them.
Yeah, they feel the pain of unreliable technology or slow technology or stuff that you just can't quite find it, right? Like poorly organized or duplicative, people doing the same thing across 3 or 4 different systems. And so, most small businesses feel like they're just constantly putting out fires. It's again, I think you put it perfectly at the beginning. It's in the way. It's rather than it being something that's helping them get their job done. Instead, it's actually standing right square in the way, and they're having to fight it instead of have it work with them.
Yep.
And that's a problem that we work with clients all the time to try to overcome. And it really starts with being super aware of what those challenges are and how you might be able to make investments to overcome those, right?
Yep. Yeah, and partnering with the right people, right? And that may be people within your organization, that may be, outside influences, to get some sort of a strategy in place. I think, every business owner has gotten a surprise expense, right? Like nobody wants that. Nobody wants a surprise expense where it's like, hey, we've got to replace these 5 computers. We've got to, I don't know, we're going to buy this piece of software or something like that we didn't know. It's reactive, right? And that's a challenge, and it comes back to the strategic planning, the committing to some sort of level of engagement and embracing like some of that change. And otherwise, it's just going to be one of those things that just shows up one day and, it's, here it is, right?
Right.
It's not going anywhere. Technology, it's pretty interesting to look at, we're everything from public sector, police departments to manufacturing to agriculture, right? How much technology is intertwined through all of that?
Drives it.
Yeah, technology is, it's very interesting after being in this industry for 67 years now. It's like, you still drive by, an agricultural place and you see a truck weighing in and weighing out or something. It's like, that's not just they get on the scale and the number pops up. It's they're creating the weight master certs. They're, logging that, the load that came, empty load that came in, load that went out.
Humidity of the product.
Yep.
All of those things.
It's just everywhere, and it's very interesting. It doesn't even matter. I'm trying to think of like any industry that doesn't use some form of technology.
And the key differentiator, I feel like, for those businesses that use it to good effect are when they think of it as something to invest in.
Yep.
Right? When they think of it as, this isn't just an appliance to buy and shove in and hope it keeps the food cold forever, right? But rather something that is going to be a system that will help them get more trucks through if they can. Is there a way to optimize that? Is there a way to speed that up at all? Is when it's rice harvesting season, we have a lot of clients in that industry and they've got 30 trucks stacked up and each individual truck takes a certain amount of time to get through. Is that time partially due to systems that are taking measurements or is it processes or some combination in there? And is it something that can help make that faster, make it better, spot things quicker, or make decisions around whether or not to take that product and put it in, tank A or silo B or whatever.
Yep.
And yeah, getting in there and thinking of it as how can this technology help us do what we do better.
Yep.
And that's, I mean, we believe in that deeply.
Yeah,
and,
of course, yeah.
But we've definitely seen those success stories where those people who kind of lean in and say, okay, I'm ready to make these investments to help my processes and my business work better because of this technology that helps us do that.
Sure. And it's not the technology piece is not just dropping something into your point, right? Drop it in and just, now it should just work.
Right.
No, it's a steam engine.
It's thoughtful. Right?
Yep. You continue to feed it, continue to invest in it. Right. I think, growing up, born and raised in Wisconsin for 27 years, right? I think, we shared an office for the first few years, once I moved out here, and got the job at Matson Isom.
67 years ago.
67, 72. Yeah. I remember you saying, I can't remember, who you're talking to, but I was, just eavesdropping. And you were saying you never see a roofer replacing a roof in the middle of winter. It's thought of ahead of time, right? And in Wisconsin, I definitely didn't see that.
Right, very true. With actual weather, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's planned for, right? There's a reason that roofing and construction is really busy during certain times of the month or throughout the year, and it's the planning ahead on that. And I know it sounds weird to say in a way, planning doesn't cost anything. It doesn't. It's something that you strategically do, and whether that planning doesn't have any sort of takeaway or outcome, at least you're having the conversations. Yeah. And I think that that's very important, especially taking this back to like AI, when things are coming out, that are coming out, and they're fast and advancing, they're just flying through the industry, and it's like, at least let's start talking about that.
Yeah. I'd say the only thing it costs is time.
Right. Which some would argue time is money. I get it. I understand that.
But I totally agree with you. It costs a lot less to plan ahead, especially when it comes to the problems and being clear about where those deficiencies are, what's holding you back. If I bet everybody who's listening to this right now could stop right now and think, what are the top 3 things that are holding my business back when it comes to technology? And they might think something like, well, this slow computers, right? Like literally I click on something and it takes 10 seconds. And, speaking of my gray stripes, 30 years ago, right, clicking on something and having to take 10 seconds was like
fast. You're in the future.
Yeah, that was
Marty McFly.
I'm living in the 2000s, man. But now, having something take 10 seconds feels like eternity, especially if you have to do it, 5 times a minute or whatever. Now it's taking way too long. So everyone can think of those 3 things that, okay, yeah, maybe my line of business application, that system that we use every day is slow. Or maybe we have to take data out of it and do a bunch of work and then put it into another system. And that literally requires a full-time person on my team to do that. Or the network drops out, or our Wi-Fi isn't very good, or I take my laptop around the corner over here and then everything stops working, so I got to work it back. And even if they're not that dramatic and it's just the little tiny paper cuts that happen over and over again, being aware of what those problems are, to your point, having a simple plan that just says, here are the top 3 issues that if we could solve these, if we could invest some time, effort or energy or money or any of those things toward solving these problems, that will have an impact on my business. My organization could be more efficient. We could get more done. And technology, to your point, would not be standing in the way. It'd be actually helping us succeed. That little bit of forethought, that little bit of reflection will pay dividends, because now you can say, okay, those are things that are holding us back. What would be the benefit of us actually investing in solving them? And then if you can do that thought exercise ahead of time, then you're already going into having a conversation with an expert around technology, understanding what you think you need to move the needle for the business. And that that is so valuable. That is incredibly valuable because most people, and I totally get it. You're just trying to stay alive. You're just trying to put out fires. You're just trying to run your business. Payroll didn't work today. So did anybody call the bank yet? Or it submitted twice. Now we gotta claw that money back. Or these accounts receivable are late. So who's calling them? The last thing you want is another hurdle slowing you down in the technology layer. And so it can be very difficult to find that time to do that planning, but it is so worth it. And further to your point, if you are a business leader, you're a business owner, and you can't think of anything, I bet if you ask some of the employees, they will have a real quick hit list of their pain points, what doesn't work for them. But again, it goes back to having those conversations. Being intentional.
Yep, exactly.
Which is a big part of our core philosophy, right? Like just, I feel like most people expect of their technology partner, their quote unquote IT guy, right? Is put on the cape, put on the I-band and fly in, save the day, and fly away. And that has its place, right? And sometimes that's absolutely necessary because unexpected things happen, and you just got to get it solved quick. But part of what we believe deeply in is this whole idea of ongoing proactive support. Being there we've talked a lot about strategic planning, right? So being there to help you plan before touching anything. And then moving into, okay, now let's build out the foundation. Let's make sure that there's enough in place here to keep your people working well, keep your business running. And then because printers still exist, there's the support side of it that says, okay, great. I don't care how many printers have been manufactured in the last 60 years. All of them always fail at the worst possible moment. It could be a $10,000 printer and it still doesn't work exactly when you need it to before a very important event. And
a meeting.
Having those people available to call and just provide that kind of immediate support is obviously always going to be a part of what we do too. But
huge part.
And because at the end of the day, right, business owners are not, nor should they be, technical. Most business owners don't get into business because they love working with computers or networks or systems or services. They get into it because they're really good at what they do. And it just so happens that along the way, the tools that they need to execute whatever it is they're trying to do are technical. They're laptops, they're tablets, they're
just the world we
servers, they're cloud, they're any of those kinds of things. So, we firmly believe that the people that run the businesses don't need to be experts, right? They're tech experts. They need to be experts in whatever they're doing. But they do need a plan. They do need a basic idea of how can I leverage these tools and technology to do what I do better. And if the technology is more often than not getting in the way and not actually supporting that mission or plan, then that's a problem, right? And that's something that everybody should be leaning into. And at the very minimum, like you said, if they think as the business owner, actually, I think it's great, go talk to your top 3 employees, right? And ask them that same question. I love that strategy because you're going to find out real quick. You're going to say, well, actually, every morning when I come in here and I turn this thing on, it takes me 15 minutes to get to do my actual job because all these things are in the way. This doesn't work right. This pops up. This goes away. And we haven't even spoken at all about risk or cybersecurity or any of that kind of stuff. We can save that for a future episode. But I think this is a good place to start because it all starts with planning, and it's never too late to plan. I feel like people do this well when it comes to their core business, and they understand the trends, they understand the industry, they understand what their challenges are in whatever it is that they do, but they relegate sometimes technology to this kind of necessary evil. Like, well, I just have to have this stuff here so that we can get by. And if they change that mindset or adapt that thinking to how could I leverage this to actually do what I do better, faster, cleaner, with better data, with less duplicated effort, then that makes all the difference, right? That's where they'll actually start to get those force multipliers of being better than their competition, or a standout in their industry if they're providing nonprofit services or if they're in local government or anything like that.
Or fix something that they didn't know was broken.
Right.
I mean, that's another part, right? Is you're having the conversation. You don't know that it takes that person 15 minutes maybe in the morning because
all you know is they're not doing everything they're supposed to be doing. So what is that? And then, having those qualitative conversations is like, oh, all of a sudden, there's a thing I didn't even know was a problem.
Yep.
But
yeah, and to your point, like you had mentioned, some of the conversations that we have with our clients, sometimes they are just conversations when we're talking about the strategic planning and the next level planning is, where do you see the business in 3 to 5 years? Mm-hmm. And I have yet to find a business owner that doesn't know that, or at least have an answer for that, right? And then you plan that, and then you can reverse engineer that back. Okay, so if we want to have a second office opened up in another city, or we have all of our stuff on prem. We want to go up to put everything up at Microsoft Azure, AWS,
up in the cloud.
Yeah, in the cloud, right?
Yeah,
full circle.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's like and then you can reverse engineer from there. Okay, every year we got to hit some milestones. Let's do that. Let's build a budget around that. And to my earlier point, it's change. And change is scary.
Yeah.
But by having those conversations, the change isn't as scary as what you think, especially when partnering with somebody who can take that burden in a way for you, right? And that's a really big thing, is making sure you have the right people. For us, at the end of the day, it comes down to the people, our clients, comes down to our employees. It's just having the right people in the right seats and partnering with the right people to make sure that you can plan, build, and support going forward.
And empowering those people, right? Giving them the tools they need to get their job done. So we talked a lot about AI, and I think that a very interesting thing for us to continue to talk about in future episodes is some specific use cases, like where can a small business or a nonprofit or local government, where can they responsibly use AI in a way that is going to help them actually do what they do better, faster, smarter? And so we'll get into some of those use cases, because there are absolutely scenarios right now with tools that don't cost a ton of money that will help. And so we definitely want to talk about that in future episodes, because this is super exciting, because it is a little bit scary, but it's one of those things that if you start to reduce the fear, reduce the uncertainty, reduce the doubt, get a little bit of training in these platforms to understand what they do well, what they don't do well, then you start to understand what those practical use cases are for small businesses. I think this is exciting.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I think that if people want to join us for future episodes, they should go to our website, go to mitcs.com/podcast, and you can follow it there so that you won't miss a future episode. We're going to talk a lot about all of the different subjects when it comes to small business technology and staying at the high level, staying at the impacts. We are going to talk about how it's going to impact small businesses and what to lean into, what to invest in, and what to maybe stay away from.
Change is scary. I mean, I look at changes.
Business.
Yeah, exactly. Like I look at change as like an opportunity. It doesn't have to be all the way in. You're not jumping into the deep end of shark-infested waters.
There's a responsible way to do it, right?
There's a responsible way to do it, as long as it's planned and it's executed correctly. I mean, you can really be an exciting change or opportunity.
As long as you plan.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening to Behind the Screens. For more information on how to plan, build, and support technology that actually works for your business, please visit us at mitcs.com/ClearIT, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.